ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon. Well, everybody, I'm so excited to have our next guest here. I guarantee you have seen Nicholas Guest on your television screens the past month. That's a guarantee. For the past, so many years. I know in my life, if you ever come to my house on Christmas and you see me and my brother putting up a Christmas tree, he will inevitably ask, where do you think you're going to put a tree that big? And my brother will inevitably say, bend over and I'll show you. That's Nicholas Guest is here. It's National Lampoon's Christmas Vacations. It's Todd himself. Do you know that his wife, Pamela, in terms of casting, directing, writing, acting, SAG representative, working for our rights as union members, they're here. Nicholas and Pamela Guest join us. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Great to be here. We have Santa here also.
I wouldn't expect anything. Hello, Santa. Well, Pamela, can I start with you if you don't mind?
Oh, I don't mind at all.
You do a little bit of everything from directing to acting to producing to writing to casting. I didn't bring my dramatic monologue. I was ready to audition for you right here. But
I don't cast much anymore, so
can you tell us a little bit, the first of many, and this short, and how it was at Cannes Film Festival and this ushering in this? How did all of this making art start for you? When did you know I'm going to be an artist and I have a voice and something to say?
Well, do you mean specifically with that short film,
or in general?
Well, I used to sit in my living room in Akron, Ohio as a kid watching all these black and white movies, with all these very impressively glamorous actresses. And I thought, I want to do that. Plus my dad, I remember, took me to see The King and I when I was 6. And I was sitting in the balcony, like leaning over the edge, and I see all these kids running around, and I'm going, I can do that. I want to do that. How come I'm not there doing that? So, I think it was just something, that I came in with, a thing I wanted to do. So, yeah.
I get it. It starts with the bug. You get the bug at a young age.
I like to say it's like a disease. It's long, you can't get rid of it, and no matter what I did, I was very successful as an independent film casting director and in other areas. And I just always just wanted to be an actor. That's all I ever wanted. So everything else has been kind of because I wasn't, so.
Nicholas, how about you?
Well, I just was very fortunate because my family, my dad was British, and we went back and forth between New York, which was also just incredible in terms of seeing theater. I got to see Sid Caesar, for example, on Broadway. I saw,
he had the life I wanted as a kid.
Saw Carol Burnett in Once Upon a Match. And then in England, if I can say that, I saw Oliver, the first production. And again, as Pam was saying, to see the kids on the stage, it was electric. It really was. So and I tried to do a lot of other things, actually. I studied other things, but once I did an actual full-length production, there was no turning back. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I get it. So, Nicholas, when did you start? How was the road to, a film and television career? How did that all?
Well, it started, with theater, and my first production was with the great actress Maureen Stapleton, and I was on tour with her, and Anthony Perkins directed us. It was just extraordinary, And then, of course, I went on to study with people like Bill Hickey, who's in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, And that was, anyway, and he was amazing. And I studied with Stella Adler and all kinds of people. And then one of my first roles actually was in a film called The Bell Jar. And I had a small role, but I played essentially, I was out of my mind, the character. And so it was very freeing,
Typical.
Typical. I was in a little cubby hole of an office. And in those days, you could just be with the director, And he said, "Can you scream? Can you be insane?" I said, "Yeah." And I did that. And he said, "You're in the movie." It kind of like was a magical moment. And my girlfriend at the time was outside the office, and she heard me screaming. She wasn't sure which way it went, but it was a good thing. And I also had one line in a film with Faye Dunaway. And it was just thrilling to be, on that set. It was The Eyes of Laura Mars. I think I was I was at this table and we were singing Happy Birthday or something. And then bit by bit, the first really fun job was in a TV movie with Alan Arkin, in a really well done movie called The Defection of Sima Skudirka. And I played a Russian interpreter. And I had gotten to know him also before that. So it was just thrilling.
Can I interject here for a little bit?
Yes.
We were at a function, I can't remember, some kind of fancy tea a couple years ago, and we ran into Quentin Tarantino. Neither of us had ever met, but of course we all, and I'm sure your audience knows who he is, famous director, writer. So he says, "Oh, Nicholas Guest," and he starts reciting all of these parts, including all the way back to the one-liners that he did. He said, "I know your whole career, you're fabulous," and we were like, "What? I don't even know those parts that he did."
It made my day, to say the least. He was so present. It was really remarkable, and he just loves movies, and
and
really.
You apparently.
And you. Well, we did our own little research. We see Nicholas 198 IMDb TV and film credits.
Well, the other thing that happened is I really lucked out in voiceover, so that I never effectively had to do anything outside of it. I was just beyond blessed.
And I was going to ask you about the voiceover work. We've had some fantastic other voiceover. It's that were with Rob Paulson and Candy Milo and all these people who have done many like you. And then you look at Lady and the Tramp and X-Men and Frozen and Rio and Scooby-Doo and Fantastic Four, like all of these projects that your voice has been added to. How does one? Was it your team? Was it you? Did someone say, "Hey, you have a voice for a cartoon"?
It was luck. It started actually. I did one voice in Russian for a movie called The Nude Bomb with the actor from Get Smart, and then the woman who basically got me that job just kept hiring me, and I became part of these incredible groups of actors, improv people that had been in the committee, the Second City, and during the early part of my doing it, people like Robin Williams would come in and do a line or two. It was unbelievable, and it was a different time of the whole,
But you still do it,
and I still do it, and I love and what I was.
He's so happy. He loves it.
So,
he would pay them. Don't tell anyone. But
one thing
doing it.
I was remembering this thing the other day that I was in the old days, you would call a service to find out if anything was happening, and usually they'd say, all clear, But one day I called from a phone booth. Remember phone booths on Fifth Avenue, and there was a message for me to call a woman named Ruth Levine, who was the casting director for The Edge of Night. Remember?
Yeah.
And she said, "I need you to be at the set tomorrow. $50 you're getting." And it was a union thing. And I remember going. I could have been arrested. I was screaming, running down the
That was
street.
your first on
That was
camera?
my first. No, it was actually after that I started to get little bits of things, but I was just happy to sit as an extra. And by the way, in those days, the extras were filled with actors who were studying with somebody, for example, that Pam studied with, Uta Hagen. They were really serious, and they were just there to get the $50, but they were very serious actors. It was interesting. Yeah.
Well, if you are both, that is fascinating, and both of you, the work that you have done. If you're with Stella Adler, or she's with Ruta Hagen, and you're doing the work like that with some of the most famous, if you're a nerdy actor out there watching this, which a lot of students are, if you're an actor studio, you're a Meisner student, you're like they're the three big, the Adlers, the Meisners,
It was incredible. Yeah. And Stella it was unbelievable. She'd be sitting there and saying things like, "When I worked with Stanislavski," she was with him, you know what I mean? It's not like in a book, so she would be able to demonstrate, and you would do a scene and she would jump up and start to direct you, and she knew what she was doing. It was brilliant.
Amazing. So you love art and you love actors, obviously, because you both are. So yeah. Pamela, which leads me to a question for you about being involved in terms of the safety and the union work that you do. You are maybe I'll mess this up. As a proud SAG member myself, you are a proud supporter of the members' first campaign when you guys.
True.
I much love to Jolie Fisher and Matthew Modine and all of the people that fight the fight like you on that. I did a fundraiser for Jolie in New York while she was running. Tell us about how you got involved, if you don't mind.
So Nick got involved first through thank you for that, with Membership First, which there are two main factions in Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, which is the largest performers union in the world, right? Okay, so Nick got involved first through, I don't even remember how, but he would go to the meetings. He was on like an alternate on one of the boards, and he would come home so agitated and upset that my daughter and I both said, "You can't do this anymore, dear." And then I kind of gradually got, I don't know, more and more into it, more the idea of helping actors, and because I had spent so much time as a casting director seeing how actors were taken advantage of. And it just kind of made me mad, So luckily I was elected to the national and the local boards. And that was, I think, in 2016, right around that, whenever that election was. And then what happened is I was sitting in the boardroom having made this short film about this very terrible audition, my first audition, which we could now say was a Me Too experience. And when I was 21, it's still in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I, for years and years, did not deal with it. And then randomly, the daughter of my assailant showed up in my little theater company of 40 people, causing me to go on the internet, look her up, and find out who my assailant was, who was her father. So when I found that out, I realized I felt really terrible about myself that I hadn't reported what had happened. I had hid it away. I realized that my psychology was totally run by this one event. It was the reason I would have panic attacks in auditions. It was really a lifelong, up until that moment, terrible running of my life through this terrible event. So anyway, my daughter and I made the film, the first of many, where she plays me and goes through that experience up until the really bad thing happens. And then after we made that, I was in the boardroom of SAG, and the Harvey Weinstein women, I hate to say, you qualify them as that, but that's, what they spoke out against his behavior in the October of 2017. And I was sitting in the boardroom, and I went, we need a task force to deal with sexual harassment. It's not just me, it's all these women. I had no idea. I thought I was the only one, thus the first of many, the title of the film. And anyway, we were able to initiate this task force, which became the president's, thing under Gabrielle. Then several months later, maybe even a year later, we formed in the boardroom. I founded the LA Sexual Harassment Prevention Committee with me as chair. I'm still chairing it. I got survivors, very high profile survivors, and not so high profile, to start working on this issue. And there have been a number of changes that have happened, although there's so much more work to do in so many areas where people need protection, more than there is. And however, we were at a screening of Wakanda, recently, and one of the main actresses said that she really feels things have changed on set and in the culture. And so it's kind of been worth it, to go through what I went through in order to do good in the world. So,
well, I know that as an artistic community, we have to thanks. You were on this subject and talking about it and putting out art about it before anyone was brave enough and this movement happened. Your work was out and you started talking about it. And that takes a lot of courage, it's an industry of fear. And you were speaking about it from.
But, I really felt like I had almost nothing to lose. It was more that, especially because I have a lot of people in my life who didn't know this had happened to me. And it was, I had to start talking about it for people to know who I am. Like at one point I sat my two kids down and I said, your mom isn't normal. She had this thing happen to her. Your life can be whatever you want it to be, my life had a lid on it because of that experience, and I'm now taking the lid off, and hopefully everybody else is. I was just at the Women's Power Summit sponsored by the RAP a couple of days ago, and we had a survivors circle, and a number of women were there, and no men in that particular circle, but men can be victims too. I want to make sure people know that. And they, just the fact of having a circle, of being able to talk about what happened to you, is very healing. And a number of the women had written books, had projects that were putting their experiences out there. And it was wonderful to see, that there isn't the shame. It's a terrible thing, but we're not to blame. The survivor is not the person who should be shamed and, upset. I mean, yes, you should be upset, but not, what am I saying? Not blamed for what happened.
Absolutely. Well, it's what a legacy of work. And thank you for everything you do for the union as well, because I know that there's it's interesting times. All unions are interesting times, equity and SAG and all of the performing unions that are out there. Like, it's an interesting time to be a performer in these crazy health times, and the way that the business has changed to streaming and all of the stuff that's moving ahead. So that's why I love what you all are doing, because you seem forward thinking into moving towards the future. So thank you.
So great, because I'm noticing actors are standing up more. There are a lot of things that we want that we need to change, very fundamental things in the industry. And people are saying they need to change. Let's change them. So we'll see. We have this contract coming up in a year or so. So, we'll see how far we get. But, it is interesting times, as you said.
It is. Well, Nicola, what a lovely look at what she gets to be your wife, and she's like this powerful presence and doing her business.
Needless to say, I'm just incredibly proud of her. I really am. And it was so wise of her to step in, and for me to, because I couldn't take it, as she was alluding to. I really couldn't. And so, I just remain a support.
Well, it's not that you couldn't take it. You just got so emotionally involved and upset. That it wasn't worth it for you, actually.
Right. And when you're trying to convince someone and you realize you can't. So
yes.
Very frustrating.
Very frustrating. And I'm not particularly good with the facts and laying out something logically. In fact,
really?
I'm going to tell I was at our son asked me to be a judge for his debating group, and
in high school. He was on the debating team.
So I think tie and jacket, and I thought this is going to be so easy for me. I went down to wherever they were debating again, and so there was one of his friends was debating against a girl from another school, right? And I wasn't even listening to what was being said. I was thinking, that jacket she's wearing is just so cool, and she just seems like a nicer person than him. I think I'm going to say that she won. I was fired. I was no longer allowed to be.
Our son
I was just like,
stay away from the debate.
Stay away from the debate.
Not how you judge it. Thanks, Dad.
What she was saying was wrong. I said, yes, I know, but she just seems such a great person.
Well, Nicholas, there's three projects that I would like to say I've been watching my whole life that you've been a part of. I'm the biggest Aerosmith fan. I may have watched the Janie's Got a Gun music video 1,000,000 times in my life.
Wow.
Talk about a song with a message and a powerful piece.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we will talk about Christmas Vacation in a moment. I'm sure but I also love, me and my brother's thing growing up was to watch every single Eddie Murphy movie, good, bad, and ugly. And can we just talk about Trading Places? What was an experience like to be on that set with that cast and that moment?
It was absolutely thrilling. And the thing is, like, it was just everything was on such a high level then too, whether it was the costumes and the cinematographer I got to know a bit. He was a British guy who'd done all these major films. So I was just in awe. I really was. And then, of course, all the old-time actors that were on it were just so incredible and were open to talking to us and telling stories about like films in the 40s and so forth. But what happened that was extraordinary and doesn't happen anymore, I don't believe, is I was with the other guys in that photo. So it was really the four of us, right? The be the jerks, Dan Aykroyd.
For lack of a better word.
And we were in this bathroom in the Armory building up on Park Avenue, which has great acoustics. It's like the subway has good acoustics if you want to sing stuff from Motown and so forth. Anyway, the four of us were singing and just joking around, and John Landis walked in and said, "That's very funny. Write a song and we'll film it." So I ended up putting together the song with the wonderful Robert Curtis Brown, and we brought it in and they filmed it. I mean, they took hours and hours filming us doing that song. And so I joined ASCAP, or Robert and I joined ASCAP, but it was just, when does that happen? Do you know what I mean? It was just amazing. And then we even wrote a song to say goodbye to the whole cast at the end. And anyway, it was just fantastic. And Eddie Murphy at his best, of course.
At his best, absolutely.
Superb.
It's such a fantastic movie. It's so funny and poignant and great, and it's a classic. So how often? Go ahead, tell us how often when you're out and about in the world, and through your life, do you get people yelling quotes for National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation at you?
I get it here and there. I did get it on a plane once too, and the woman sitting next to me had me, say it into her phone so she could send it to her mom. That was a very sweet moment, actually. So yeah, I mean, and Pam and I remember we went to the opening or whatever, the first showing of it, we thought it would be fun or whatever, but we had no idea. And when it started, we kind of looked at each other and thought, wow.
Those opening animated credits, which are so fun. And we went, oh, this is better than we thought.
This was at Sony, I think. And it was
really
remarkable.
Great experience.
And again, an incredible cast. And I had worked with Randy Quaid, who was brilliant in it among everyone else. I did Long Riders with him. It was just, who else could have played that part?
Certainly.
It's cinematic history, really. And Julia Louis
Dreyfus, genius.
I don't think from Thanksgiving till New Year's, there is not a minute that movie is not playing somewhere in the world and giving joy. It's timeless. It'll just live forever. Everyone could relate to your family coming for the holidays.
And my favorite, one of my favorite people of all time was my first acting teacher, Bill Hickey, who's the uncle, and and the explosion, and he was perfect.
Aunt Bethany and him as that whole it's comedic masterpiece. What I was going to say is you both have studied with. When I went to William Esper, which was a 2-year Meisner Conservatory, and when I was with my teacher there, she would say drama is hard, but comedy is hard, because comedy is based on ideas and it's about the timing and the movement of it all. When you approach a script, when Pamela and Nicholas, both of you, when you get a script, and what is your is there a different process when you're doing something like Lampoons or you're doing trading or something like that versus when you did, the first of many, or when you wrote that, or you do a drama like that? How do you approach these projects? What is the path that you take to get to the character and the truth?
Well, you could talk about how you got the Lampoon and being a jerk.
Yes, let me.
Okay. I've got to think about this.
Why not tell it? Is what happened. Yeah. So I got the call to audition for the Lampoon film, and I come in, and I was just like the old days, just with the director, and I started to say a few lines, and he said, "You would never say it like that," and I said, "Actually, I would."
So he was a jerk.
So I
got the part
without knowing, not like, what am I doing? And I left that audition. I thought, okay, really smart, Nick. Good move. And then
you just didn't do that back then.
I
don't know if you do it now either. Is you don't tell the director how you're going to play the character and in any kind of confrontational way.
Little did I know that's what he was looking for, because I swear, if I had said, "Oh yeah, you're right, let me switch that up," I wouldn't have gotten the part.
Right.
And so that happened a couple of times over the years, but definitely with that. And then when I was brought back and read with Julia Louis Dreyfus, she's a genius, there was just the chemistry was there right away. So thank goodness.
For me, there really isn't a difference in how I prepare it. It has to be in the writing. If the writing is funny and you just connect to your own reality, as a person, then you'll be funny. And I don't know, like when I did this episode of Married, Judy Greer, and you know, we were sitting there, we improvised a little bit, you know, but it's a funny situation. I'm sitting there, they're telling me about their sex life. You think I'm their therapist, and it turns out I'm their kid's counselor. That's a funny bit, right? You know, so I just had to be, you know, okay. Mm-hmm. And then boom, you get the reveal at the end, in which then you realize is a funny thing. But if I couldn't have done anything differently, you know, I couldn't have played. If I played it for comedy, it wouldn't have been funny.
Right.
You know, so.
And it starts with the script. I mean, like there's some things that are, you know, that
I said that.
Well, she's way ahead of me.
Go ahead.
She's way ahead of me, always has been, and will continue to be. I once played a character.
I'm waiting for you to catch up, Jim.
I got to work with Mickey Rooney in a movie, and my character's name was Slocum.
I was in it too.
And you were in it too. This is a great thing that happened over the years. We'd go out of town on something, and there would be the movie, and then they put Pam in the movie.
Occasionally, not all the time.
Well,
what were you going to
Brian
say?
and Keith,
Yeah.
Anyway.
What were you going to say?
It's a good question.
No, I should never interrupt him.
Yeah.
Mickey Rooney and
Rooney.
Yeah,
Very
it was just
Slocum.
just a little slow. You know, everybody's doing their thing, and just like a little slow. Hello, Nick, where are you? You know, and that's been used, like just it's useful to
amplify that kind of part of his personality, to be slower than normal,
right.
And then put him in a normal situation, and that's kind of funny.
And you know that wonderful book, How to Audition?
Yes.
Yeah, I studied with him. Shirtless. Superb. One of the things that he said that I thought was so brilliant is when you start something, you just don't know what's going to happen. And he said, you can always play, I don't know what's going on. That's something to play.
And that is funny.
And that is funny. I don't know what's going on.
Depending.
Right.
I just want to add one other little, you know, tidbit that I picked up along the way, which was I got finally in after auditioning first in the 70s and then recently for the Actors Studio, I was accepted as a lifetime member. Before Martin Landau, who was leading the sessions, passed away. And one of the things that he said, which I think was just so valuable, is it's not enough to just learn your lines. You have to know, the actor, have to know, why is the character saying this right now? And once you figure that out, that's kind of like the golden thread, you know, through the character and through the whole project. Why are you saying what you're saying? I mean, don't you think that's genius?
That is so. It's not just how you say the lines, but the
right.
thought, the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
And that's why that daydreaming and that backstory and thinking and coming up with a world is what artists, you know, fall in love with a little bit, because it gives you some. It's that action and that feeling of behind what you're saying. It gives you some confidence in how you're going to say what you need to say. That's brilliant.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the hook, you know, to hold on to. And away you go.
You two are such a joy.
Tell that to our kids, would you?
Where are they? Your parents are a joy. You are a joy. You're both, and you both, the work, Pamela, the work that you've done, if it's web series or if it's the shorts or if it's with SAG or if it's the acting and the casting and all of it, is and thank you for making this industry a better place for artists to work. And Nicholas, we have enjoyed your work and watched your work and for many years and will continue to. Just I know that all of that comes with a sacrifice, and it's it's a personal giving of yourself that we get to enjoy. And thank you both.
It's great to meet you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It's so nice to me. If you want more information on Nicholas and Pamela, you stay tuned. We'll find more info, and they'll have a whole bunch of stuff coming up their sleeves. Don't worry about it. Watch out. Look for them with more stuff coming real soon. Thank you both for being here. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Nice to see
We
you.
feel the same. Thank you.
Take care.